okay, Mulan Boycotting, the movie that came out. Mario went and watched it, and he said it's a phenomenal movie. I know Mario is sitting there right now saying, don't watch it. Mario came in saying...
He claimed he didn't watch it.
He claimed he didn't watch it, but he loved it.
I would never watch that.
But he watched it.
He watched it twice,
He said it was insane. So he loved it. He loved the movie. He says the movie was partially filed in China.
Filmed?
This is the same... I'm sorry, filmed in China. This is the same region where there have been many human rights abuse against millions of members of ethnic Muslim minority groups. Main actor Liu Yefei, Mulan, voiced support for Hong Kong police and the Chinese military government. Police has been using violent force against the Hong Kong protesters. It is suspected that she is forced to back China's public policies where they free will or propaganda statements, okay? Film actors and studio like Jackie Chan are forced to promote pro-CCP values. This also creates issues for Disney. The El Dorado, this also creates issues for Disney. So you're hearing some of the stuff that's going on with these guys, that you're making movies, yet you're coming out saying things about China. You got to be careful about what you're saying. Now, they're saying to boycott the movie. Are you following the story, Adam, at all? What's going on? Are you following any of this that's going on?
I'm following the bigger story here, not so much the Mulan thing.
What's the bigger story?
The bigger story is that in China, which is a obviously communist country, there's major human right violations. Major. And the center of that is in the western region of China, which closely borders Pakistan and India and, there's Bangladesh, Turkestan, or Tajikistan. There's a lot of Muslims in that area, and they call the Uyghur Muslims, spelled, I think, with a U, anyway. And they're full-on set up labor camps, concentration camps, where these people are forced to work. Ironically, what they're saying is if you follow the trail of this work, these people are forced into labor camps, and they've been making the face masks that we've been wearing here in the United States. So the bigger story here is that China is just continually violating human rights, and it just these Uyghur Muslims, and then an offset of that is this little story with Mulan and whatever they got going on.
It seems like a very China thing to do, to make an actress that's going to star in the #1 Disney movie when they don't even have theaters open, so you know how big this thing is going to be, to force her to have these statements. 100%, I believe she was forced to. What would she benefit for commenting about the Hong Kong police, right? So absolutely, China put her up to this. It makes it difficult. It's already a horrible year for Disney if you think about it. You know how much money they're losing on their theme parks? $30 million a day. $30 million a day. And if you indirectly support China, which kind of Disney does because they own ESPN, which televises the NBA. I mean, and it's a slippery slope when you go after the general manager of the Houston Rockets for supporting the people of Hong Kong, right? And you attack him, personally, and almost cost him to lose his job. You're on a very, very slippery slope. And I just go back to this 100% that she was forced to make those statements, but it's just making for a more trying year for Disney and questions they have to answer that they never thought they'd have to. Because they thought this was going to be the feel-good story, the Mulan movie.
But I'm gonna give you a completely different perspective here. So yesterday when I'm talking to Yuna Lee, and she was 24 years old when she left South Korea to come to the States, she wanted to go into film. I said, why'd you want to go into film? She says, because I thought the biggest impact I could make in the world is through film. I was going to make film and tell stories, right? And this is how I was going to make impact, because a lot of times we are inspired by movies we watch. I grew up watching cartoons in South Korea about North Korea, and we saw them as all red pigs and all this other stuff. So it influenced me as a kid. I said, okay. So she comes to the States, goes eventually and gets her degree from Columbia University, which is one of the best schools out there for journalism and that field that she was going into. I agree with her that one of the biggest ways to change people's thinking is through movies and film, okay? When you think about Titanic, now obviously we had this conversation briefly yesterday together. When you think about Titanic, Luis, who do you think about? When you think about Titanic, what do you think about? Leo. You think about who? Leo DiCaprio? What do you think about when you think about the movie Titanic? You've never seen Titanic? Okay, so what do you think about when you think about the movie Titanic?
I haven't watched it, but I also heard what you said yesterday.
Okay, so Titanic, when you think about it, you know, most people think about, You know, she's standing
King
like
of the
this.
world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
Celine.
right. It's getting, oh my gosh.
I think it's Celine Dion.
Yeah, a great love story and all this other stuff they got between the two of them. Okay, great. You know, the original Titanic wasn't starring, you know, DiCaprio and all that. The original Titanic, the director and the producers and the funders of the original Titanic was Hitler's Nazi regime. They
That was
produced the
fascinating when you said
original
that the other day.
Titanic. And by the way, the director of Titanic, when it first came out in 1943, started speaking out against the Nazi regime. You know what happened to the guy? He got fired. By who? Hitler. Hitler was involved in the story of the Titanic.
I'm sure he was more than fired.
Right.
Do
it could
you
have been
know?
worse.
Well, fired's got different definitions
Yeah,
behind it. But
exactly.
do you know who was the hero in the original Titanic?
Probably some sort of Nazi.
A Nazi soldier
Yeah,
was the
exactly.
hero in the original
Propaganda.
Titanic. Exactly. What is the moral of the story? What I'm telling you right now is China
go on a freaking,
China is
cruise.
realizing the way you impact the world on how they view China is through movies and cartoons, and they are brilliant. They are so brilliant, and you got to watch them very, very closely because there are so many subliminal messages that you are not going to catch. So yes.
So are you saying they're like a big investor in Disney so they can have some control on the script?
100%.
Okay.
I'm not even putting it 90%. 100%. Why? Because China doesn't have the best reputation around the world. So where do you start? You have to start either through movies or music. Okay, you can't really do music right now, okay, because music is a complete different game. You can do movies and cartoons. And what's the best age you can start controlling people's
Kids,
minds?
yeah.
Kids, not older. Let me go and do that with cartoons. So, yes, I do believe China's playing a card like that. And, you know, with a lot of these cartoons and things that are taking place, you gotta be very careful. My kids were watching cartoons, and I'm like, babe, what the hell was that right there? She says, what do you mean? I said, okay, guys, get out of here. Go to the other room real quick. I want you to watch this real quick. Babe, watch this. What does that look like to you? She says, babe, that's crazy. I said, why the hell are they putting this on Netflix? I'm not okay with this. Cartoons that have subliminal messages that you and I would catch.
What was it?
I'm not going to talk about it, but you would catch. You're like, what the hell was this all about? So the point is, you got to be kind of involved nowadays, because if you don't, it's not even about sex and, you know, homosexual and all this other stuff. The concern isn't even about that. It's about who's the hero. Who's the hero? Who's the hero? You got to watch it very, very closely. And you're seeing that happening with movies right now, where a lot of the biggest Hollywood stars, you tell a Hollywood star, I'm going to give you $40 million for a movie, they'll do anything for you. You're going to give me $40 million? Absolutely. And we're going to make you hero with 1.5 billion viewers. All we want you to say is nothing bad about China. Oh, dude, don't worry about it. I'm good. Give me the $40 million.
Yeah.
Simple. Here you go. Sign the contract. Just say good things about us and say, most people don't understand their way of living. You have to understand if you've never lived it, you have to understand them. We have to understand it. We have to understand them. No. What you have to understand is they're driven by power, and they have a vision made in 2025, made in China 2025, and they're pretty serious about it.
What do you think is the end game for them? Do they want to rule the world?
They want power like you don't. They want to impose their way of thinking on the world.
At what point does it turn into military conflict, do you think? Is that part of their plan too?
Well, they're not a military, although they're investing. Obviously, they doubled the nukes and all that other stuff that they're doing. They have to get stronger on the military side. But their game is a different game. And they kind of gave us a flavor with the last 5-6 months, what happened in March when we had a shutdown here. Yeah, I mean, people are, one day when we watch this and things come out, like, you know, you watch the movie Argo and CIA cannot reveal all the stories for 30 years. That's a number you always hear about. 30 years, you can't know the real truth. Well, when you find out 30 years later, you don't emotionally care about it as much as you do in the moment. But when 30 years from now, we find out what really happened right now, because someone's going to come out. I mean, you can't treat the people of China the way you are right now for too long.
Right.
Social media is not helping these guys out. And these sanctions, these things that are going on right now, if this guy gets reelected, Trump gets reelected, China is hating life if Trump gets reelected. Trump gets reelected, Iran's hating life, China's hating life, and North Korea's hating life, because North Korea is backing against China. So, you know, China gradually, the way they're doing it is they're going through regions that need money and countries that need money, and they're giving it to them. And their last enemy they face is who? America. It's going to be the last one. You don't put America
patient.
first. You
Right.
go, and they're long-term thinkers. They go one by one by one by one by one, and it's okay. Now that we have more than 50% of the world that is on our side, now you better listen to us. here's what we expect. We want you to add this into your education. We want you to add this into your history books. We want you to replace Spanish with Chinese. We want you to replace language with this. We have to be very, very careful with what kind of influence these guys want to have, because once they control media and TV and movies, you're kind of in trouble if that takes place.